High school is supposed to be where we figure things out, where we make friends, find ourselves, plan for the future. It's loud, messy, dramatic, and unforgettable. But not everything people remember about school is yearbook-worthy. Some hallways stay cold, no matter the season. Some classrooms have doors that don't open anymore. And some stories get whispered between students but never written down. Because sometimes, things happen that even teachers won't explain. Across the world, people have shared experiences they still can't make sense of. Strange shadows in the gym after dark. Voices coming from empty rooms. Substitute teachers who vanish after one day without ever being on the roster. These are real stories, told by people who thought it was just another day at school, until it wasn't. Because the truth is, school doesn't just prepare you for life. Sometimes it teaches you something else entirely. Something darker. It was supposed to be a normal after-school rehearsal. Jamie had stayed late for drama club like they always did. The auditorium was quiet except for the muffled sounds of people packing up. Most of the cast had left already. Just a few diehards running through lines again, hoping to impress the director. The stage lights were dimmed, casting long shadows over the velvet curtains and scuffed wood floor. Jamie went down to the basement storage area to grab a missing prop. The director had asked for an old lantern, the kind used for a scene set in a forest. Everyone hated the basement. The door creaked like it hadn't been oiled in years, and the whole stairwell smelled like dust and something slightly sour. They told themselves it would take 5 minutes. But once Jamie was down there, the door shut behind them. Loud. Too loud. They ran back up the stairs and pushed, but it wouldn't budge. It was like the lock had changed the second they stepped through. No cell signal. No footsteps above. Just silence. Well, almost silence. Because then Jamie started hearing it. Voices. Whispering. At first, they thought it was someone upstairs, maybe another student playing a prank. But it didn't sound like anyone they knew. The voices were low, rehearsed, rhythmic. Almost like lines from a script. Don't go in there. Wait for your cue. Why did you leave me? Jamie backed against the wall, gripping the prop lantern so tight their knuckles went white. The voices got louder, overlapping, repeating. But no one appeared. Just a flickering light from somewhere deeper in the basement, where no one ever went. They moved slowly toward it. Something about the voices felt familiar, like they'd heard those lines before. In rehearsal? No, not this year. Not this play. Suddenly the lights overhead flickered. Jamie looked up and saw a figure on the catwalk above the stage. Someone in costume standing perfectly still. The figure looked down at them, just for a moment, then turned and vanished into the dark. When Jamie was finally found an hour later, the director was furious. What were you doing down there that long? Jamie explained everything, expecting to be laughed at. But the director went quiet, and then asked a strange question. You said you heard voices? What were they saying? Jamie repeated some of the lines. The director's face went pale. I've heard those before, he said. Those lines aren't from our show. They're from a production the school did 15 years ago. The last time they used that old lantern. Jamie froze. The director explained that a student had died back then, during a live performance. Fell from the catwalk. No one knew if it was an accident or something worse. After that, the script was locked away. The props boxed up. No one talked about it. Jamie didn't sleep that night. They kept thinking about the way the voices spoke. Calm, steady, like a cast that had rehearsed for weeks. And then it hit them. The steps Jamie took in the basement. The way they moved. The lines they spoke aloud when testing the prop. They had matched the old blocking. The exact sequence that student followed on the night they died. Jamie hadn't just been trapped. They'd been cast. In a show that should never be performed again. In the fall of 1996, Mia transferred to a new high school halfway through the semester. Her parents had moved for work, and she didn't know a single person. The building was old brick walls, flickering fluorescents, and long echoing hallways that always felt a little too cold, even when the radiators hissed at full blast. On her first day, The secretary handed her a slip of paper with her locker number, 237. No one said anything unusual, just an ordinary locker on the second floor, wedged between two others that looked exactly the same. But the first time Mia opened it, she felt it. A sudden, sharp draft, and something else, a low, muffled sound, like someone was crying behind the metal. She froze, put her ear closer, and heard it again. It wasn't crying exactly, more like screaming, but faint, like it was coming through layers of walls or water. She slammed it shut. That night, she told her parents. They laughed it off. So did the girl sitting next to her in history class. "You probably just got the squeaky locker," she said, rolling her eyes. "This place is falling apart." Still, Mia tried not to use it, but the school didn't allow backpacks in class. So every day she had to open that locker at least once. And every time, the sound was there. Whispers, a stifled scream, sometimes just the feeling that someone was right behind her. She reported it to the janitor. He tightened the hinges, tapped the door, and said it was just bad acoustics. But on a Friday afternoon, curiosity got the better of her. Everyone had gone home for the weekend. The hallway was empty. Mia brought a flashlight and unscrewed the back panel of the locker. Behind it, hidden in the narrow gap between the locker and the wall, was a bundle of burnt paper, half stuck to the metal with melted wax. She pulled it free, coughing from the smell. Most of it was unreadable, but one page survived. It was a diary entry. "They keep telling me it's fine, that I'm just hearing things. But I know what I heard," she screamed. "I still hear it every time I walk past this row. If anything happens to me, please tell someone. Please don't leave me here." There was no name, just a small doodle of a flower at the bottom corner. Mia brought the paper to the librarian, who took one look and froze. "I remember that flower," she whispered. "That was Emily's. Emily Winters, a sophomore who vanished without a trace in 1984. One day she just didn't show up to class. They searched the grounds, the nearby woods, even drained a lake. Nothing. Her locker had been sealed off after that, until the school reopened it years later, when renovations forced them to reuse old numbers. Mia had been assigned Emily's locker. No one ever found her body. No one could prove anything. But students whispered about what they'd heard. That she had complained of strange sounds. That her last diary entry was missing. That something was wrong with that row of lockers. Mia stopped using it. Kept her things in her friend's locker. Finished the semester as quietly as she could. But on the last day before she moved schools again, she made the mistake of walking past it. She didn't touch it. Didn't stop. But as she passed, locker 237 creaked open, just slightly. And from the crack, she heard her name. Not shouted. Not whispered like a ghost. It was said softly, gently, like someone calling her from far, far below. "Mia." She never looked back. But some nights she still dreams of that sound. A voice trapped behind cold metal, still waiting for someone to finally listen. It was the middle of winter when the new substitute arrived. The roads were icy, the air so cold it hurt to breathe, and the sky stayed a dull gray for days at a time. At Red Hollow High, a small rural school tucked between forest and farmland, substitutes were rare. Most teachers just pushed through the flu or bad weather. But that day, Mr. Ellery, history teacher for over 20 years, was out sick, and someone new was sitting at his desk. They didn't say much. No one caught the substitute's name. They wore old-fashioned clothes, slacks too short at the ankle, a button-up shirt that looked like it belonged in a photo from the 1940s. Their hair was perfectly combed, parted to one side. No jacket, no coat, even in that freezing classroom. When they called roll, they didn't look at the sheet. Just glanced at each student and said the names without hesitation. Everyone assumed they were just another fill-in. Quiet, weird, whatever. But by the end of the week, people started to notice little things. The substitute never blinked. Not once. Not during class. Not when chalk dust blew into their face. Not even during fire drill when the alarms shrieked. They also never seemed to eat. A few students saw them in the cafeteria, sitting at a table with no food, hands folded neatly, staring out the window toward the woods beyond the soccer field. And every time the bell rang, they were already in the room, sitting at the desk, waiting. One student, Eric, grew obsessed. He thought it was a prank, or maybe a weird experiment by the school. He started keeping notes, tried to talk to the sub, ask about where they were from. No answer, just a polite nod, a stare back out the window. That Friday, Eric stayed late. He pretended to forget his backpack, waited in the hallway until everyone else had gone home. He saw the substitute walk slowly out of the building. No coat, no bag, no car. And then, into the woods, barefoot. Eric followed at a distance. His boots crunched in the snow, but the sub left no footprints. The forest swallowed them, silent and cold. He turned back, went home, didn't sleep. On Monday, he asked the office what class the substitute was covering now. The secretary looked confused. "There was no substitute last week," she said. "Mr. Ellery's been out, but no one filled in. The classes were self-directed." Eric insisted, described the teacher, the old clothes, the staring, the woods. The secretary frowned, walked to the back and returned with a dusty yearbook. She flipped it open, stopped on a black and white photo. "Is this who you saw?" Eric's stomach dropped. It was the same face, same part in the hair, same expression. But the photo was dated 1952, and under it, Mr. James Caldwell, history, deceased, died in a fire, right on school grounds. He'd gone back into the building for a missing student, and never came out. Eric never spoke about it again. But years later, when the school was remodeling, workers found footprints frozen in the soil beneath the floorboards, barefoot, facing the window, and for just 1 second, one of the workers swore he saw someone watching them. From the edge of the woods at Willow Creek High, everything ran on schedule. The bell rang at 8 o'clock sharp. Classes rotated every 45 minutes. Lunch was always at 12:15. Students joked that you could set your watch by the school's routine, and they weren't wrong. The principal prided herself on discipline and order. No late bells, no early dismissals, no surprises. So when the bell rang at 10:07 on a random Tuesday morning, Lena knew something was off. It was third period. She was in the library during study hall, flipping through flashcards and sipping a vending machine coffee. The room was dead silent. No one was talking. The clock ticked steadily. Then the bell rang. Not the soft chime for class changes, but the loud, shrill, start-of-day bell. Everyone stopped, looked up, but nothing happened. No announcements, no fire drill, no teachers in the hallway, just silence. Lena asked the librarian, who blinked and said she didn't hear anything. Other students shrugged it off, probably a glitch, but the rest of the day felt wrong. In math, the teacher handed out an assignment they'd already done last week, complete with the same questions and hand-drawn diagrams. In English, their usual teacher wasn't there. A sub appeared, but no one could remember when she walked in or what her name was. Clocks stopped ticking. One even spun backward for a few seconds. When Lena met her best friend Emma at lunch, she laughed nervously and said, "This day is weird, right?" Emma blinked. "What do you mean?" Lena started explaining, but Emma cut her off. "Wait, where were you this morning? I looked for you in second period. Your seat was empty." Lena frowned. "I was in class." "No, you weren't," Emma said slowly. "You didn't come to English. Even the teacher said so." By last period, Lena felt like she was floating through someone else's life. Students whispered things she couldn't hear. The school intercom crackled with faint static. A janitor passed her in the hallway and gave her a strange look, like he didn't quite recognize her. That night, she asked her parents if anything weird had happened when they were in school. Her mom paused, then said something odd. "I remember this one day. The bell rang at the wrong time. Just once. No one ever explained it. I got sick after that. Really sick. Missed a whole week. Doctors couldn't figure it out." Lena didn't sleep much. The next morning, she walked the halls before first period. Everything looked normal until she reached the science wing. There, by the lockers, a small analog clock was frozen at 10:07. The same time the bell rang. She touched it, and in that moment, she felt something cold press against her spine. Not a breeze, not a chill, something watching. For weeks, Lena couldn't stop thinking about it. She read old newspapers, dug through yearbooks, even asked the janitor, who just shook his head and muttered, "You heard it too, didn't you?" Some students had vanished over the years, he told her. Quietly, no explanation, no body, no memorial, just gone. And every time it happened, someone remembered hearing the bell ring when it shouldn't have. A warning, or a calling. One morning, Lena woke up to the sound of the bell, but she wasn't at school. She was in her room. It rang 3 times, loud, distant, mechanical. She checked her phone. 10:07 a.m. The school was miles away. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the sound rang again the next day. And the next. No one else heard it. Not her friends. Not her teachers. Not even Emma, who now avoided her entirely. It didn't stop. And Lena started to wonder if the bell hadn't been a mistake at all. If it hadn't been ringing for the school. If it had been ringing for her. The start of something. Or maybe the end. No one saw Lena the day she stopped coming to school. Her locker was cleared out. Her name was quietly removed from the attendance list. But the clock in the science wing still points to 10:07. And sometimes, just after second period, students swear they hear a bell that isn't supposed to ring, calling someone, or warning them, or maybe, just maybe, marking another one who's already gone. High school is supposed to be predictable. The same classes, the same faces, the same bell ringing again and again. But behind the routines and familiar walls, there's something else. Old buildings carry more than just echoes. Some classrooms hold secrets that outlive the students who once sat in them. And some names vanish from attendance sheets without ever being crossed out. Most people move on. They grow up. Forget the strange moments. Brush off the memories that never quite made sense. But some stories never really go away. They get buried quietly because no one wants to admit they might be real. Because the idea that something dark could live beneath the floorboards or behind the locker door is too unsettling to believe. Still, there are always whispers. A bell that rings too early. A teacher who doesn't blink. A shadow where no one should be standing. And it makes you wonder, do you remember anything strange about your own school days? A moment that didn't fit? A hallway that felt colder than the rest? A feeling that someone or something was watching you from the edge of the crowd? Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was something you weren't meant to notice. Because the bell rings, the halls fill, and the day begins. But sometimes, something else walks those halls too.